It's interesting when you're down 28-0, like how you're going to respond. And I think you saw the character of our locker room today in terms of just how guys went out and competed, because it's not like the second half started out that great either, but our guys kept competing, kept battling. And for that, I'm super proud of the guys. I think we just got to clean some stuff up and take advantage of some opportunities that we didn't.
I think ball placement was a little all over the place today, kind of throughout the whole game, and I think it picked up later. But I think early on I just missed a couple throws and was a little bit off, and made it hard on some of the receivers on some of those split plays.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Commentary for both Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. Good points by both. Matt LaFleur talking a little bit more big picture about the result and what it means and where they go moving forward into the Rams game next week. And I think he's right. They had some missed opportunities, and I think it is commendable the way that they fought, falling behind 28-0, because I've seen previous Packers teams quit in that spot. I've seen lots of football teams quit in that spot. So, yeah, it's great that he didn't quit. Rather just not be down 28-0 in the first place. I liked that bit of sound from Jordan Love because he could have been more accurate yesterday, and I'm glad that he addressed that after the game and talked about it. I think the receivers at certain moments in time yesterday could have gave him a little bit more help, but he absolutely could have made their lives easier as well. It's a team game, ultimate team sport. I find Matt LaFleur's comment about the fight after falling behind by a couple touchdowns interesting, because we've seen a couple examples in the NFL this year of a wide gap like that, 21, 28 points, and the other team comes charging back. Saw that with the Ravens and the Cowboys. I think that Cowboys comeback was a little bit more hollow than the Packers comeback. The Packers, it was a one-score game with like 10 minutes left in the fourth. That was a ball game in the fourth quarter. Not 100% sure if Cowboys-Ravens from, I think, 2 Sundays ago qualifies, but my point is, I think the NFL this year has been a little bit more like the NBA in that it's really hard for a game to be truly over in the first half. If the other team is able to gas it up and stay engaged and stay competitive, you can overcome big deficits in the NFL, which I think is good. That means that I feel like I need to keep watching a game when it's 21-0 or 24-3 or 28-6, what have you. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Hope you had an amazing weekend. I had a very busy weekend. Lacrosse Thursday night and Friday. Thank you to everyone who came out to Flipside on Friday. It was really, really cool to be able to throw an event in a city where we are not stationed. Ebo does his morning show out of Madison. I do this show out of Madison most of the time. We're on in Lacrosse, and I have so much love for Lacrosse. Lived there for a while, but we're not based out of Lacrosse. So to be able to tell folks, hey, on this day at 6 a.m., we're throwing a party, please come, to have people basically lined up to get into Flipside on Friday. That was really cool. So again, one final thank you. And to those, some folks came back for the evening show, came back for the Wisco Sports Show from 4 to 6 after also being there for Over the Line in the morning. So thank you to everyone. If the audio quality wasn't amazing on last Friday night, I apologize. It's perils of a live show with lots of people in a bar. So we're back in studio tonight. It should sound crystal clear. We'll be able to take calls again. So thanks to everyone who came out to join us at Fest on Friday. I was at the Brewer game on Saturday night, so I slept like a baby last night. I needed a couple extra hours, and I had a couple extra bottles of water today. I would love to take your calls. I always love reaction Mondays after a Packer game, and the Badger game on Saturday interests me as well. If anyone wants to dabble in that game, I'll go there with you. I think we're trending, which is sad, to the point where there's a little bit more apathy with the Badgers rather than anything. And look, Ebo does tailgates at the Red Zone for every home game. He's been in this city, in this market around the Badgers longer than me. And he was saying last week, it's like, yeah, I can't really remember a time where interest has been this down. So I don't think it's hyperbolic for me to say that some folks are getting apathetic to the Badgers. It's the way in which Saturday's game went. They jumped out to a lead, and we felt like, man, could this be it? Could this be the game where everything clicks? And Luke Fickell and his staff, they get their first signature win. And it didn't happen. But the possibility, it felt like it was there, and just a lot of errors in the second half. So actually, that's an interesting game. I'll talk about that. I can't say the same for Badgers games in the upcoming weeks. Like if they lose to Purdue, we're probably just going to roll our eyes and ignore it. But USC, that game was interesting on Saturday. So if anyone wants to discuss that, of course, the Packer game on the table today as well. 608-321-1670. Call or text. You can comment on the live stream. We're on YouTube, Facebook, the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills, and streaming on Twitter as well. You can tweet at me and watch the stream at Wisco Grant. I hate losing to the Vikings probably more than I hate losing to any other team in the NFL. more than the Bears. A loss to the Vikings will crawl up my butt more than a loss to the Bears. I grew up on the western side of the state, grew up closer to the Twin Cities, up in the Chippewa Valley by Eau Claire, and then I lived in La Crosse for a while, which is right on the border. The river's right there. Right, so you get a lot of Vikings fans. It's just a rivalry that sticks in my butt more than Packers-Bears, and the Bears haven't been any good. So that rivalry feels a little bit dormant. Falling behind 28-0 or whatever it was in the first and second quarter is awful and embarrassing. And it's such a mark on the Packers and that coaching staff and this group of players that the Vikings came out that much more ready to play. They were flying around, hitting that much harder, executing at a higher level on the road. It's really damning on the Packers. And I don't want to bury that, right? Lots of criticisms to be levied tonight, lots of blame to be placed, lots of bad play. 100%. We're going to talk about all of that. Offense, defense, and special teams. But I didn't really understand a lot of the online commentary yesterday, and I didn't really understand a lot of the commentary on Bill's show. All the comments on the live stream earlier today, some of the calls that we got, and we took a lot of calls on Bill's show earlier today, which I like doing on Mondays after a game. I don't really understand some of the commentary and some of the takes, some of the strong reaction, especially about Love. Like I've seen a lot. I saw during the game yesterday. I saw a lot today. Well, they brought back Love too early. They brought it back a week too early. Do you really think the Packers would do that, though? In September, the Green Bay Packers, Colin Cowherd, and I think this is clever, refers to them as the team that wears Dockers. If each team was a person who had a sense of style, the Packers would wear Dockers and brown dress shoes with a weave belt. And there's nothing wrong with Dockers and a weave belt and shoes, but they're not flamboyant. They're not sexy. They're not risk-taking. Very conservative. Very, very, very conservative. I guess that's the only word that we need. Very conservative franchise. They play very safe. Right? You really think that the Green Bay Packers, who we've all watched for a long time, we've watched the way that they've operated, you think that team would bring back Jordan Love if he wasn't ready in September? It'd be one thing if this was first week of January and you need to win to get into the playoffs. Okay, well then maybe they push it a little bit, but still, they're not going to completely endanger the player. Do you really think the Packers would have brought back Jordan Love if he wasn't ready? This is why I got so annoyed the last 2 weeks with the way his injury was being discussed, Jordan Love's injury. It drove me nuts because everyone nationally, the national media, which I know is a little bit of an eye roll, but it's, I think, the best phrase still used to describe talking points outside of the market of Green Bay or Milwaukee or Madison, outside of the state of Wisconsin. I go back to that Chase Daniel and Diana Rossini clip. It's like, how could they think of bringing him back? It's only been 2 or 3 weeks. This is a 6-week injury most of the time. And they just paid him all that money. And he was laying on the ground in pain in South America. How could they consider bringing him back? It's like, because if he's healthy, they'll bring him back. That's how it works. And if he's not healthy, they won't bring him back. It has nothing to do with the opponent, nothing to do with how well Malik Willis is playing, nothing to do with his contract. It has nothing to do with anything other than how does his knee feel and look when you take some imaging, when you stretch it. How is the knee doing? The knee was healthy, so he played yesterday. And I got a little frustrated with people yesterday and people today say, well, they brought back Love too early. He was healthy, so they brought him back. He was cleared, so they brought him back. And yes, he's the guy, even if they're down a couple scores. I saw a lot of people commenting yesterday in the second quarter, get Love out of there. How do you still have Love in there? He's healthy. They've elected he's healthy. He can play. And by the way, Matt LaFleur was asked this after the game. Did you guys weigh the risk and reward down a couple touchdowns of having Jordan Love out there? Here's the question and answer. It's very short.
What were you considered when the risk outweighing the reward with keeping Jordan out there in that first
No, because we decided he's healthy, right? If Jordan Love wasn't healthy and we put him out there, then maybe he's healthy. That's why they brought him back. He's ready to play football. He's a football player. He's the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And everyone was talking about Jordan Love yesterday like he couldn't throw the ball and like his leg was hanging behind him by a flap of loose skin. He was a little shaky. He needed to get his bearings. He needed to get into a rhythm. And I'm not excusing some missed passes, some errant passes from Jordan Love. I'm not excusing the fact that his ball placement wasn't great. I'm saying, man, if you just would have looked at Twitter yesterday or read the comments on Bill's live stream earlier today, you would have sounded like Jordan Love had the worst quarterback performance of all time yesterday. And a couple bad turnovers, a couple bad decisions, a couple balls that could have been placed better. But man, they had over 400 yards of offense. Couple field goals, wide receiver makes a nice catch or two. They could have easily won that game. So I don't get the strong reaction to how Jordan Love looked yesterday. This is what I tweeted around halftime. And some folks in the group chats didn't like it. So we'll open up the phone lines here in a couple minutes, and if you disagree with this take, fine. Like, you could back me off of this take. I'm not going to scream at everyone tonight. If everyone disagrees, I guess I would admit that I'm in the wrong here. But this is what I tweeted around halftime when they were down a couple scores. I said, folks, Love has played one full game that was in South America and like 5 preseason snaps over the last 8 months. Of course he doesn't look 100% sharp. It's everything else that should be concerning. The fact that Jordan Love looked a little shaky, like he was figuring out his footwork, he was figuring out how to move around, that shouldn't be surprising at all. The fact that his ball placement for a quarterback whose calling card isn't accuracy, right? He can waver a little bit with ball placement, like Favre could, like Josh Allen. Like that's the prototype. That's ideally, and I know I mentioned 2 Hall of Fame level players. Favre, obviously multiple MVPs, but like Josh Allen's great. I'm not saying Jordan Love's Josh Allen, but he's that prototype where the accuracy can wax and wane a little bit. It should be no shock that the fact that he's barely played football over the last couple of months, that he didn't look 100% perfect. That shouldn't be shocking. Why was anyone surprised by that? I was a little shocked that their defense gave up 3 scores to open up the game. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. I don't know that I was shocked that Braden Narveson was missing kicks, but I guess surprised, shocked. I was annoyed. That was frustrating. Everything else should have been concerning. The lack of a pass rush, right? The fact that they really don't have much depth at corner after Jair and Carrington Valentine, 2 guys who've gotten hurt, right? That's why some people wanted corner in the draft. I'm not going to go all, I saw a lot of people doing this yesterday. This is why I said they should take a corner in the draft. Well, if any team loses corner number 1 and corner number 2, they're going to be in a tough spot. But they don't have a ton of depth at corner. Out of the wide receivers, really could have played a little bit better yesterday. Dontavian Wicks specifically. Romeo Dobbs, I thought at the point of the catch, could have been a little bit better yesterday. Everyone could have been better. Absolutely everybody. I mean, the game started with a dropped pass on 3rd down on a ball that wasn't quite placed perfectly, a missed field goal, and then a dropped interception by the Packers defense that turned into a Vikings touchdown. Like, that just said it all. The first couple sequences said it all. And yeah, Jordan Love wasn't perfectly sharp. And if that's the version of Jordan Love that we get the rest of the year, they're in a tough spot, because I don't know that version of Jordan Love is accurate enough and precise enough and consistent enough to win enough games to get where this Packers team wants to go. But of everything that went wrong, especially the start of the game yesterday, the least surprising of all should have been Jordan Love coming back from a knee injury, took a couple possessions to figure it out. I thought Jordan Love, of all the issues that they had yesterday, Jordan Love was near the bottom. He's coming back. Shake a little rust off. He'd barely played. Now, I'm not going to sit here and guarantee next week he'll be perfect. Next week he'll be better. No, I hope he will be. I think he can be. But I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that to you today. But that's just my thought on yesterday's game. 2 quick calls and we'll take a break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Denny from Holman.
Denny from Holman. You always bring strong opinions. What do you think about this weekend's games, Denny?
God's country. Welcome to God's country.
It was great.
Week.
It was great.
I know. I called Evo today too, and he said the same thing. Had a great time with you. You know. Okay, the points I'm going to bring are basically, I'm going to go against you. When I saw Love kind of throwing off his back foot and kind of, his receivers did him no help yesterday. They dropped balls that normally they would have caught, but the way I felt about it was, if with the way that they were rushing and doing the blitzing, the Vikings, I thought maybe that Willis would have been a little bit more mobile, stable quarterback that could have maybe ran and got some yards and stuff, And then when he threw it up at the end, that kind of reminded me of the old gunslinger, number 4, Brett Favre.
Mm-hmm.
That one game he had 5 picks.
Arm punt. Yeah. I mean, he had a couple throws where it's like, I think on a couple of those, he's just like, well, go make a play, asking the wide receiver to go make a play. And I think sometimes that's okay. But when your wide receivers, it was clear they really weren't synced up like we saw down the stretch last year. They got to build some rhythm once again now that Love is back. Right. And Vikings corners, they were just dialed in. I think you read the room a little bit. It's like, we don't need to throw a jump ball in this spot, Denny?
And, I'm just like you, man. I would take the Packers finishing in the bottom of the league if they beat the Vikings,
Yeah.
And like Bill said on your program today, it's like now we're 3 games out. Because that's what it did.
Yeah.
And the bottom line to it that I felt was that when they got to the point where all of a sudden they were clicking and getting together and stuff like that, and then Love kind of just threw that one up to get it thrown away and stuff, you know. I mean, sure, I know he felt bad, but in the post game, I could not believe the way LaFleur gave Narveson, you know, we love him, we like him, you know, I mean, seriously, because, you know, the kicker cost us the NFC Championship game last year, and now it's starting to cost us games. And, you know, the old Viking kicker's 5 of 5 right now, the one we let go.
Greg Joseph.
And yeah. And it's like I put on yesterday on the Mike Spotford, I said 1-800 Crosby, because, you know, I mean, Crosby, I don't think would have missed from the 35 and 40, you know? I mean, he was pretty solid for that, but
look, if we don't think Narvis is a guy, Denny, I appreciate it. I just want to take one more call before we get to this break. If you don't think Narvison's a guy, fine. Crosby can't kick anymore. He's too old. The rest of the league decided that. So if you want to bring an old duffer to just kick 25 to 35 yarder, okay, fine. But in an NFL offense in 2024, you need someone who can do a little bit more. Look, you want to get rid of Narvison, fine. I don't really want to do the Crosby thing today. He's old. You want the Bucks to bring back Brandon Jennings too? Like, I know those are apples and oranges. I'm making a point. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Hey, Uncle Packer. What's up?
I know I'm up against the break, but, you know, I agree. I think Jordan Love kept us in it. That last drive was amazing. If Tucker Kraft would have dropped that one up the sideline, you know, it just got punched out. There was some things.
It was a good play. It was a great play by the defender.
It was a great play. Yep, he punched that ball straight out. You know, and you know, Jordan, this is like his first full game on turf. You know, we're gonna see. I'm not. We're 3 games back, but it's so early. I'm selling the farm when we play him in Minnesota. I'm so looking forward to that. I think we're gonna take him. But you know, I overstepped my bounds. I got a yellow bug. I got the bottom painted green. I got big Packer things. I was running around in my F Minnesota shirt with my Packer hat on. And I'm showing my head today. I'm still a Packer fan. I kind of went overboard. I hate Minnesota with a passion. I am that Packer fan that they don't like. And I'm proud of that. But
you're every Vikings fan's nightmare. Is that what you're saying?
I am. I'm that Packer fan they hate. But, you know, thank God I got them 4 Super Bowls to go back on.
Mm-hmm.
They always get excited. You know, I'll tell you, where's our defensive line? I know it's nice for Rashard to make some tackles, but where's the sacks?
Or the pressures, or the hurries, or
just shut us down.
Yeah, well,
there was no. He stood there untouched most of the time. I want them to blitz. I want this guy running for his life, and I don't know where it was. I'm discouraged.
Well, you talk about blitzing, which means bringing more than 4, right? You're committing extra rushers. I don't even know about that, Uncle Packer. I just think that they're 4 guys. If they're bringing 4, let's say they're bringing Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, and Devontae Wyatt, who I know got hurt. Like, you should be able to get some pressure on Sam Darnold with those 4 guys. And I think that was maybe the most concerning part of yesterday's game, actually. Long term, is I question how good this pass rush can be. Like, how good is their personnel up front? Because through 4 weeks, they have been really disappointing. Now, the first couple weeks, mobile quarterbacks, okay, maybe that changes the game plan. And the Titans are just so bad, and Will Levis is just so not good that I think some natural success was just afforded to that pass rush last week. The Vikings, that's a good team with some good offensive linemen, some a little weaker. They just could do nothing. The only 2 sacks were a linebacker and a slot corner. So it's like, hey, our offense today, we got 2 home runs. Well, they came from the 7th and the 8th hitter. It's like, that's not where you want your production coming from. Let's take a break. 608-321-1670. More of your calls coming up next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Listen, I know sacks are not the be all end all. It's not everything. Pressures matter too. Rashawn Gary is, I think, wanting to be thought of and is getting paid like a top tier pass rusher in the NFL. A top tier pass rusher in the NFL, if they go 11 quarters without getting a sack or with maybe just one sack, it's like, that was kind of a slow period. Rashawn has 1 sack in his last 11 games. And I know last year, part of the second half of the year was coming back from the ACL and it looked like he ran out of gas. I understand he got one in the Philly game. I understand he would have had another one last week had it not been for the Preston offsides, and pressures matter as well. The pressure he had last week led to an LVN sack. I understand all of that. But 11 games, 1 sack is still not good enough in any real capacity for somebody that should be, and I think is thought of, especially in Green Bay, as a pass rusher who is somebody that needs to make a ton of impact on this team.
It's Andy Herman from last night's Pack-A-Day. I was on that podcast, along with our friend Perry Goldstein, who joins the show from time to time. So go listen to it. We got to talk about the pass rush. I think that's my biggest concern from yesterday's game. And I know Jordan Love didn't look great. He's played 1 football game in, the last 7 or 8 months? And it was in South America, and he got hurt at the end. Comes into the game, needs to shake off some rust, needs to play himself into a groove. I think Bruce Irons, do we all know that Packers Twitter account? I mostly don't like his takes, but I thought he had a good one. He was like, Jordan Love is not a precision, accurate passer. He's a rhythm thrower. He's a rhythm passer. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, he plays himself into a rhythm, right? And we saw that last season, the macro, right? Once he played a bunch of games with his wide receivers, they got into that rhythm together. And then yesterday, after I think kind of testing and feeling out his body and feeling out how he feels in this offense so far in 2024, he got it going in the second half. Made some awesome throws, awesome catches, awesome pitch and catches, connections with those wide receivers. I'm not really all that worried about Jordan Love after yesterday. And I don't think most people are. Some of the commentary I see, it's like, they brought him back too early. It's like, no, he's the Packers starting quarterback. They deemed him healthy, so they brought him back. And even when they were down a couple of touchdowns, they continued to play him. Matt LaFleur, I'll play the soundbite one more time, and then we'll take a phone call, was asked yesterday, was there any weighing of risk and reward with Jordan Love out there down multiple scores?
Whatever you considered when the risk outweighing the reward with keeping Jordan out there in that first
No. And actually, when they were down, were they down 28-0, or was it 28 when they were down multiple touchdowns, when the game was basically in its worst spot? My thought process was, okay, come out in the second half, everyone stay healthy, no one get hurt, and just build some momentum, build some reps, treat the second half of this game almost like a preseason game, get some nice momentum going out of this game and into next week. So when you go to SoFi and play the Rams, you feel like, okay, we kind of got our mojo back. We started to kind of reconnect wide receivers and Jordan Love together. And from that point of view, the second half was a massive success. It was also a little disappointing because you're like, man, if this game didn't get off to such an awful start, this game was super, super, super winnable. That's what's frustrating. The idea was make the Vikings for the first time all year, play from behind, make them uncomfortable early and see what happens. And not only did they not do that, they give them the biggest lead that they've had in a couple weeks, more so than the Niners or the Texans, the last two opponents that the Vikings really handled up at US Bank. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Darnell the Chump.
Hey, Darnell the Chump. What's up, Darnell?
Well, hey, I'm not going to get all doom and gloom on the Packers after a game that I don't think a lot of people necessarily had them winning. Obviously, you know they're a trendy pick right now, but I praised two things in this game, and I had one thing that really scared me. The two things that are good first was the resilience. I thought that regardless of how they came out in that first half, watching them never really give up on the game, that made me feel good because I've seen teams in the past just phone it in when you're down 28-0.
Well,
right?
I mean, we saw it just a couple years ago. And by the way, I don't want to be that guy who's like, well, an Aaron Rodgers-led team. I don't like doing that. Well, when Aaron Rodgers was here, so-and-so would have happened. Or if Joe Barry was the coach, here's what would have happened. I don't know what would have happened if Aaron Rodgers was quarterback yesterday. All I know is I saw that happen to the Packers against the Saints in week 1 a couple of years ago. And that game was done at halftime, right? For whatever it's worth, to your point, I've seen teams, Green Bay teams, quit in spots like that before.
And they didn't. And I thought that was a really a notable difference from some of the teams that I've seen the last couple of years. The other thing, I liked seeing the Jordan Love flashes, right? Maybe he didn't put a full game together, right? But there's glimpses here and there of why is he getting paid $55 million? It's because he can make throws that 1 or 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the league can make. That's it, right?
Yeah.
He makes a couple of those throws a game, and that makes me go, okay, maybe I was worried about the $55 million for a second, and now I'm not, right? I'm not at all worried about Jordan Love. I think that he will only get better as the season goes on and he gets healthier. So that doesn't worry me at all. What does worry me is the defense just in general. Like if they have 1 or 2 people go down, right? Jair Alexander's not in, and they're a porous mess in the secondary, even with Xavier McKinney. That scares the crap out of me yesterday.
And that's the worrying thing, Darnell, is they didn't take any corners in the draft. They didn't add to that position in the offseason. But the idea is that if the corners are having a rough game or Jair has to miss a little time, that extra added talent and depth at safety helps make up for it, right? Like if you don't feel great about Ballantyne and Stokes, okay, but McKinney's back there, Bullard is back there, Nixon's a veteran at least, although I'm not really sure how good he is, right? The extra talent at safety kind of makes up for the lack of talent or the lack of depth in this game at corner, and it just didn't pan out that way yesterday at all. By the way, and I saw the stat, where is it, about when the Packers corners were targeted? It was just a mess. The passer rating was through the roof, and I'll try to find it. But when Ballantyne and Stokes were targeted, it was just a mess. I'm going to try to find the stats for you, but just give me a second.
It was bad. And
it was bad. You know what? I'm going to stop looking for the stats. You just nailed it, Darnell. It was bad. It was bad. What more do we need?
My wife was trying to tell me, she goes, I don't think they're really missing Jair Alexander that much. I think that they're fine without him. I'm like, are you watching the same game that I'm watching? Like,
right.
When he's at his best, he locks down whatever number 1 receiver is on the other opposing sideline, right? That's what we have him for.
It has happened. I don't know. It's not like prime Revis where I'm like, if he's out there, then it's happening.
No.
He could. He has.
When he's at his best.
Sure.
Is kind of where I was going. But he did it, was it last year or 2 years ago? He locked down Justin Jefferson and did the whole seatbelt thing, and then he grittied on him or whatever the young guns do these days. But yeah, they didn't have that yesterday, and it was so evident, and it was really, really hard to watch because I felt like I was watching the Badger game with them just running past our DBs.
I actually think, by the way, Darnell, that's a good call. I appreciate it. I actually think Eric Stokes has been okay. I don't think Stokes was bad yesterday. I don't think Stokes is bad. By the way, Zachary Jacobson, CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports. I think those are connected. His bio changes. He covers the Packers. You all know the account. It says the Packers' top three corners of Stokes, Nixon, and Ballantyne were targeted a combined 16 times on Sunday, allowing 12 receptions for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 139. And I don't even think Stokes played that bad. I think he held his own for the most part. Nixon was poor. Ballantyne is not good. And to go back to where we started this segment, the pass rush gave them no help. Nothing. And we talked about this on Friday night's show when I was broadcasting at Flipside. We were in La Crosse. I said, up the gut, Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt are going to have to make a difference because the interior of the Vikings offensive line, that's where they can be had. That's the soft spot. And if you get a little pressure up the middle, well, that puts stress on the tackles. That puts stress on O'Neal and Darisaw, who are very good, and maybe opens the door for Preston Smith or Rashawn Gary. I don't know. I don't know how wide open the door needs to be for Rashawn Gary to run through it and record a pressure. I guess wider. It's like the late great Kobe Bryant. How much more are you the same beast and a different animal? Rashawn Gary has reached the point in his career. Rashawn Gary was a pass rusher for a while, especially pre-ACL injury, where the peripherals were really good. The advanced stats were great. He would get the pressures, and his pass rush win rate was always really good, but the sacks were never there. And you could be a productive player. You could be a good pass rusher that doesn't necessarily rack up a ton of sacks, right? Depending on who else is along the defensive front and the type of defense, lots of factors, right? Rashawn Gary has transitioned to the point of his career now where not only is he not getting the sacks, he has won in his last 11 quarters. I think is what Andy said in that clip from Pack-A-Day that I sent you, or that I played for you. I didn't send it to you. I played it for you. He's got 1 sack in the last 11 quarters, and his peripherals also stink. Like, his pass rush win rate is low. He was getting locked up one-on-one by a tight end yesterday. He's given this Packers defensive line nothing. And I understand that Darisaw and O'Neal are good tackles. I'm not asking him to be in Sam Darnold's lap every play. But a couple of times, especially with that many possessions, yesterday's game took forever. Lots of plays, lots of snaps, both sides. Like, there were lots of opportunities to make 1 or 2 big plays. Didn't even sniff one. I'm going to take this break a little early so we can come back, have a little time. J.R. Radcliffe going to join us for the final 10 minutes of the hour, a little Brewers preview before tomorrow. We're going to fire up our Brewers coverage, including a special show tomorrow night I'll describe for you, maybe after 5 o'clock when we have a little bit more time. Going to get to some texts and back to your calls on the Packers. And if you have a Badgers thought, would love that as well. 608-321-1670. More from you next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Got a couple minutes here to take some more calls. Continue to get your thoughts on Packers Vikings yesterday. I was very frustrated at the start of the game, perplexed, and a little confused as to how they came out looking that bad compared to the Vikings. That bummed me out. Not really shocked that Jordan Love looked a little rusty. He's barely played football the last couple of months. That doesn't surprise me. He's not a precision passer. It's not his calling card anyways. And once he got into a little bit of a rhythm, it looked a whole lot better. Decision-making a little shaky on a couple of those throws. But also when you're down by a couple scores, it's like you're just trying to get anything going. None of that was surprising yesterday from Jordan Love, to me, at least. That's my point. The lack of a pass rush, that was a little surprising and a little concerning. And we'll talk more about that. I have a Brewers note from Kurt Hogue, who hopefully is going to be on the show in some capacity tomorrow night. J.R. Radcliffe, his colleague and co-host on the Microbrew podcast, going to join us in about 10 minutes. But first, some more of your thoughts on the Packers before we go anywhere else. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, hey, Tony. From Texas. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Tony in Texas. How are you?
Good. Hey, this summer before the season started, we talked about Packers and the NFL in general, and I made the statement, I think the NFC representatives coming out of the North, and I kind of think you agreed with me a little bit. I still think it's going to happen, and it's not going to be the Vikings. Now, the Vikings, I think, is a pleasant surprise. I'm happy for Eric from 990. They won their Super Bowl in September. Congratulations. But the Packers will get better. They made so many mistakes. 4 turnovers, tons of penalties, sloppy, and they still won the game. Now, you and I talked about a couple of things the Packers really were weak at, in preseason and in training camp, and it's come to fruition, unfortunately. That was outside pass rush in the kicking game.
I mean, what can they do besides get a new kicker and dial up more blitzes, really?
Well, they can dial up more blitzes, but if they don't have their first and second corner out there, I don't know that that's going to be – I don't know that that's a good combination. I don't know that that would have worked yesterday anyways. At some point, you need Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark to win one-on-ones and create plays where plays have not been created for them. And, Tony, I'm sorry. I'm just a little under the gun. I know we'll have time. We'll talk again this week at some point and talk further. The kicker – what do you want me to say about the kicker? Do you know what I mean? It's just not an interesting conversation to have. It's not engaging. Yes, it's a problem. Of course it's a problem. They signed someone called Braden Narvison on cutdown day, and everyone is like, I kind of like this guy. Everyone's calling him Narv Dog. Don't call him Narv Dog. He doesn't deserve that, and it sounds dumb. And that whole era of The Office mostly sucked. Ed Helms. And I like Robert California. I'm a Robert California guy, but Narv Dog sucks. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant's Cone.
Hey, Cone.
Could not agree more with Tony. Look, maybe in the offseason we can get Ken Ingalls on here to talk about the potential of a Rashawn Gary buyout, because he's up there with the likes of Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, salary-wise, and you are just getting nowhere near that production. I mean, TJ Watt literally ruins games for the opposing team's offense.
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary makes it easier for the offense, you could argue.
Well, after this year, a potential out after 2024, $25 million on the dead cap. I mean, I love where your head is at, Cone. I do. And I think this is a great conversation. And before too long, we might be able to say that we got the Rashawn Gary dead cap contract buyout talk started on this show. And I love that. I love that we will be able to plant that flag. I don't know. He's better than this. Like, I don't think Rashawn Gary is amazing. This whole Rashawn Gary thing started 2 years ago where it's like, hey, I'd like for him to get some more sacks. And half of Packers fandom, Cone, is like, well, he gets pressures. Well, now he's not even getting the pressures. So I don't really know what to do with the guy. I thought he'd have a great year. He's got everything around him, and he's been a no-show.
And look, he's in, year 6, and he's coming off an ACL injury. He's not going to be getting better. I mean, really, his career is probably at its peak right now.
He should be. He should be peaking right now, yeah.
Right. And that's just not what we're seeing. So I don't know, give him this year, and then in the offseason, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I think he'll be better than this year. And Cone, sorry to do this both you and Tony. I want to get to JR on time at about 4:50, so I want to get another call or two in before this break. I love where your head is at, Cone. Push the envelope with takes with Rashawn Gary. He should be better than this. He's got good players around him. He's on a nice deep rotation at edge. Yeah, there were some good tackles yesterday. Minnesota's got good tackles, but good teams have good players. You need to contend with that. If you ever actually want to win playoff games like this franchise used to do, you have to make plays against good players. 608-321-1670. One more call, then we're going to take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? All right, dropped off. Perfect. The last caller on hold. Wisco Sports Show. Hello, who's this? Hello? All right. Well, maybe we'll get to JR just a minute or two early. A couple of texts here. Bobby in Menominee says, is there no show tomorrow? Everyone is, holy balls. There will be no show tomorrow because the Brewers play at about, 4:40? So the pregame would start just as this show is starting. There will be no Wisco Sports Show on the air tomorrow. Because I am coming up short going to the game, the deadline to put in for credentials is on Friday. I learned from Zach last night, Zach Heilprin, our sports director. The problem is I didn't want to put in for a credential or make plans to go to a game when I didn't know when it would be. Because if the game's at 6, I can't go. I have to do a show. But because it perfectly covers up my show, you know me, I just don't like to sit around idle with my thumb up my butt. I want to go. I want to take advantage of that time that I would normally have. So if anyone wants to go to the game as fans, I am currently striking out, asking friends short notice to go. Or, and I think is probably what will happen, is we're just going to do a Brewers live stream postgame show, and I'll do it from my house. And it won't be on the radio, but it'll be on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you've been watching the live stream and following the show like that, you could stream it, and we could do a postgame show. Maybe we can get someone from the ballpark to jump on with us and describe the scene, paint a picture for us. So that's going to be tomorrow night. 3 minutes, we'll come back. J.R. Radcliffe will join us on the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I think some of you, and I say this with so much love, there's a little privilege. There's a little caller privilege on this program because I gave Tony a quick hook to stay on schedule to get to our upcoming guests. He didn't like that. He sent me a DM. Cone followed up with a text after I gave him a little bit of a quick hook, and he said, hey, I couldn't get all my takes in, so he texted the rest of what his call would have been. Cone, I will read those. I appreciate you sending that in. We're just on a little bit of a schedule. Wanted to make sure we had time to get to tonight's main event. I know we're talking Packers, but the Brewers start their playoff push tomorrow against, well, one of the teams going today. It'll either be the Braves or no, it will be, oh God, I swear, JR, I had this down before the show started. Can you help me out one more time? Who are we dealing with?
Pretty simple. If the Braves win, then the Mets are coming to Milwaukee. And if the Mets win, it's Arizona coming to Milwaukee.
Okay, I thought for whatever reason the Braves were out of it. I swear I have tweets bookmarked. I didn't want to do this on the air, and here we are. J.R. Radcliffe, the Journal Sentinel. You hear him on the Microbrew podcast as well. Were you able to watch some of the afternoon game between the Mets and the Braves? That was electric. And I know baseball wants to get away from game 163s, but I feel like we might need more of these types of games because that was awesome.
Yeah, that was absolutely bonkers. Loved it. And living and dying with it a little bit because I certainly think it would have helped the Brewers to see Atlanta win that game because then the Mets have to be all invested in this nightcap.
Sure.
I mean, the Brewers are still in fine shape. This has definitely worked out for them, so it's not that big of a deal. Although it doesn't work out now unless Atlanta wins because a rested Arizona team that gets a new lease on life isn't exactly the vibe that I would be going for if I were the Brewers right now. But, I wish any of this mattered. It's fun to talk about and think about. And, they got to fly cross country back and forth. They're going to be so exhausted. Not going to have any good starting pitchers. I wish any of that mattered, Grant, because it just never does. You have no idea what's going to happen on the other side of this. So yeah, it was a thrill ride of a game. Mets fans will be talking about it for years, especially if they go on a playoff run.
Yeah, that seems to, man, I don't know. The difference between the Diamondbacks and the Mets, I've talked with a couple people today in group chats and, just kind of BSing, making small talk at work. And, well, would you rather see the Mets or would you rather see the Diamondbacks? Like, to me, it's not, those two teams are not on the same plane of existence. The Diamondbacks have one of the best offenses in baseball. They have dangerous hitters top to bottom. Like, they're terrifying. And the Mets are kind of a plucky ragtag group. Like, they're they're not even close in terms of quality and competitiveness. Now, sometimes that doesn't matter in baseball, but I'll take the lineup that's not the death lineup 10 times out of 10.
I think that's a very fair way of looking at it. That is how I am looking at it. I mean, the Diamondbacks, they've scored the most runs in baseball, and it's not particularly close. Like, They are the best offense. Of course, there's a give and take to that. Their pitching is kind of terrible. But if you're thinking to yourself, I've seen the Milwaukee Brewers play a lot of baseball games in the playoffs. you know what I don't think they can do is outslug the other team. And
Yeah.
if you're relying on bad pitching and the Brewers to score 8 runs to outscore Arizona's 7, I say absolutely not. The Brewers are going to want to face the Mets. And again, the Mets pitching is not going to be lined up the way they want it. You know, Peterson, who's a left-hander, had to go Sunday. So if he pitches in this series, it'll be on not his normal rest. Sean Manaea is not going to be available until, well, I think he can actually go in game 2. So that's not a huge advantage per se. But Quintana, a guy that has slowed down the Brewers, he'd be on regular rest for game 3. So like they don't have to face the people that the Brewers would be afraid of. And, you know, this team doesn't do well against left-handers, so the Mets don't have a lot of left-handers outside of those starters that I just mentioned. They're mostly most of their relievers, their power relievers are right-handed pitchers. Edwin Diaz has thrown 66 pitches now over the last 2 days, so he's not going to be available right away for a Tuesday night game, most likely. I mean, one would assume. So to me, there's no question. You want the Mets 100%, 10 times out of 10. Of course, the Diamondbacks could get here and the Brewers could blow them out. Like that also could happen as well. But that's not the feeling I left that last series with, even after the Brewers mounted that huge comeback, where again they outslugged Arizona. That is not a replicable formula for this Milwaukee Brewers team.
If I tell you that their success or failure in the playoffs comes down to the offensive performances of Adames, Contreras, and Churio, is it any more complicated than that, or do your best bats just need to get hot and swing the bat at the right time? Is that all that's?
I mean, you could throw in Garrett Mitchell. You could throw in Rhys Hoskins in there too, as somebody that you capital V on veteran, capital L leader. You know, like maybe that's a guy who gets a couple big hits in the playoffs. But you're absolutely right. It's going to be those guys because they don't have any other guys. Like as solid, I'd say. I think it's fair to say their offense has been solid down the stretch here. It hasn't been because guys have risen up to really produce where they haven't before. I guess you could maybe say Bryce Terang has been a little bit better down the stretch, but for the most part, they're not getting production out of third base, really out of first base. A couple of the outfielders, like you're getting really good defense still, and you're getting a bunch of guys who are just okay, and then 3 really good hitters. So those guys are going to have to be good. I think I'm fascinated to see how Jackson Churio handles the moment. It's a guy who seems to really like the moment. Probably is going to rise up and have a pretty good postseason if I had to guess. But Contreras has been streaky this year. Adames has been so good, but you could see him going into a 2 or 3 game rut. That's not uncommon where he strikes out 8 times. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but you could see it. So it's it is going to come down to those guys, their hitters producing. That's how they have to do this. If you're going to win 13 postseason games, you're going to need your big guns to be pretty much big guns throughout.
Would the best case scenario be Freddie is awesome and eats a lot of innings game 1, and then they can go bullpen game in game 2 to close it?
I mean, yes, but I think we're at a point where we've seen enough from the starting pitchers to know that they shouldn't see the lineup a third time through. You should be going to your bullpen as soon as you turn it over to that third time. So Freddie Peralta, let's say he throws 6 perfect innings and gets through the lineup twice. And then even then, I don't know if you want him continuing on. He just does not thrive in that situation. And he is not alone. Every starter is in that boat. The Brewers have enough bullpen guys, and especially in this series where they can sort of load up on bullpen guys, they're going to have rested dudes. And that is absolutely how they should try to win these games. The fewest innings possible out of their starters is really kind of the prescription. I mean, obviously, yes, if you could somehow get Freddie Peralta to throw 7 or 8 innings, I mean, glorious. I don't even think there's a scenario, even where he's perfect, where that ends up being the case, because you just can't trust him third time through the order.
I mean, I was hoping for 6. Like, can we get 6 instead of 5? And then you only need 3 innings for your relievers in game 1. And then maybe you could, have enough length in game 2 to just do a bullpen game to seal it out. J.R. Radcliffe, before I let you go, I appreciate this playoff preview for the Brewers, who will play someone tomorrow night. We don't know who, at about 4:30. I'm looking at the episode description for today's episode of Microbrew. You and Kurt are an excellent pairing. I've told you that before. The first sentence of this reeks of JR. I read this in your voice. We've reached the end of 162 games, and the Milwaukee Brewers won 93 of them. How is that possible? Did you type that? You have remained skeptical throughout. Okay, I knew it. I knew it.
Of course. That is still a question that I don't have a pretty good answer to. And I talked with Kurt about this. Like, obviously defense, solid relief pitching is the way that this team has won, but their offense doesn't scare anybody. Their offense isn't a bunch of like monsters, and their starting pitching is mediocre, like maybe middle of the pack. So how did they win 93 games? They reduced payroll, Grant, from last year and then won more games. They lost their two best pitchers. They lost their two other superstars for significant portions of time, and they lost their manager, and they won more games. So, like, do we just completely not understand how important defense is? Is defense much bigger than we have even given it credit for? And that's how this team was able to win all those games. Like, I mean, they were a good defensive team last year too, but I honestly, like, you step back and you have to wonder how. Like, there isn't an obvious answer. They just went out and they won the games. Like, I don't think it can really be reduced to that all the time, but
I think
they
it
just
can.
went out there and did it, man. They just did it.
They're not a great team. I've said this, but they're great at winning games. And I guess at the end of the day, that's what matters. JR, I got to go. Enjoy the games. Right. We'll probably talk at some point this week or next, because hopefully we have lots of playoff games to react to.
Let's go. Love it. Let's do it all through October, Grant. I'll see you again.
Thank you, JR Radcliffe. The Journal Sentinel. A little Brewers playoff preview. More football talk next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Freddie Peralta will be the Game 1 starter for the Brewers who win their wild card series tomorrow. That was the word from manager Pat Murphy today. Peralta went 11-9 with a 3.68 ERA this year for the club. This is going to be his third postseason start and sixth overall appearance in the postseason. Pitched 4 scoreless innings in his start back in 2021 before giving up 4 runs in 5 innings last year against Arizona in a loss. Milwaukee's still waiting to hear who they will play when the series gets going tomorrow. Either going to be the Mets or the Diamondbacks, depending on how the second game of the New York and Atlanta games play out this afternoon. But for Murphy, doesn't really matter.
It's about getting them ready. We're going to face one of the best teams in baseball, whoever it is, with a lot of firepower, with a guy on the mound that's good. You can say, well, he only had 4 days, or we only had 3 days. This time of year, you can throw all that stuff out the window. It's about being ready to play, and we're going to play against somebody good. So, buckle your chin strap and let's roll.
Again, we'll find out in the next couple hours who their opponent will be. Game 1 is tomorrow at American Family Field. First pitch is slated for 4:32.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Matt LaFleur says Christian Watson probably going to miss at least this coming week against the Rams with an ankle injury, though he wasn't sure how long their injury will eventually keep him out. Didn't have an update on defensive lineman Devontae Wyatt. As for Jordan Love, LaFleur said he came out a little sore, but feeling good. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
It's interesting when you're down 28-0, like how you're going to respond. And I think you saw the character of our locker room today in terms of just how guys went out and competed, because it's not like the second half started out that great either, but our guys kept competing, kept battling. And for that, I'm super proud of the guys. I think we just got to clean some stuff up and take advantage of some opportunities that we didn't.
I think ball placement was a little all over the place today, kind of throughout the whole game, and I think it picked up later. But I think early on I just missed a couple throws and was a little bit off, and made it hard on some of the receivers on some of those split plays.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Appreciate J.R. Radcliffe's time. Listen to Microbrew. Follow him on Twitter at J.R. Radcliffe. And, of course, subscribe or support the Journal Sentinel any way that you can, because between Kurt and J.R. and Jim Ozarski, just some great analysts, great writers, great journalists who are always willing to come on and help give us the insight on our teams. So appreciate that publication, and so many great. Todd Rosiak was on with Bill last week as well. Just some really generous humans, and appreciate their time. So support their work if you can. Cone Roller gets us back into football with this text. He says, I was up against it, so I wasn't able to get all my takes in. And Cone, I'm sorry about that. Badgers are getting close to dead to me territory this season. Pathetic second half on Saturday. Running out of the shotgun on 4th and 1 might be Longo's death sentence. Happened to see Fickle's comment on that play? I did not, but I will find it. Eric Stokes is entering Kevin King 2.0 territory, just not a first-round talent. Packers will be fine. Love looks shaky, but hopefully only gets healthier. I don't know how he was cleared to play. They had like almost 500 yards of offense. Like in the first half, he looked like he was trying to figure it out a little bit. I question why so many are skeptical of Jordan Love's health. Do you really think the Packers in late September would have put him out there if they didn't feel perfectly fine about his knee? He just needed to get reacclimated a little bit. He's a rhythm thrower anyways. I think it takes him a little time. I think he's like Favre in that regard. And funny enough, he wore a Favre jersey to the game yesterday for the walk up. That's another thing that I can just skip. I can opt out of that part of sports. The walk up to the game. Let's see what the stars are wearing. How about a hoodie and sweatpants? How about that? That's what athletes wear. Wind pants with the buttons that you could just whip off. That's what you should wear to a game. Enough of this fashion show stuff. Although the Favre jersey was cool. Cool tribute. I know the poor people thing. Yeah, he's got Parkinson's. It's a lot. Okay, we don't need to get into the Favre thing. On the running out of shotgun on 4th and 1, I saw a lot of people on Twitter. A lot of people that I like on Twitter. Some holier than thou takes. It's like, you're showing your true colors if you're complaining about play calling. You're just showing you don't know ball by complaining about running out of the shotgun on 4th and 1. Okay. Well, sure. Okay, fine. They can keep doing it. It's not working. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Okay, but like I'm watching the games with my eyeballs and I keep watching them do it and it keeps not working. But over the last 10 years, okay, but we're not talking about the last 10 years. I'm talking about this team, this season. It's not working. You're showing that you're a casual if you're complaining about running out of the shotgun. Okay. All right, fine. You know what? I'll pipe down then. It's going great. Longo's killing it. What a supremely coached second half of that game. Excellent work all around. 608-321-1670. Packers thoughts, Badgers thoughts. Would love to take your call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Aaron from Middleton.
Hey, Aaron, what's going on?
Hey, not much. I know you really don't want to talk kicker.
No,
Aaron,
we can talk kicker. It's just I don't have any unique material. Like I don't have anything to tell you that you don't already know. If you have something, hell yes. It's just I don't have a long rant on the kick. I have nothing to say. So I'm interested to hear your take, Aaron.
Well, my take is, with the new kickoff rules and the way that everybody's just kicking it into the end zone, that you really don't have to carry all these special team players to make tackles and get hurt. So you could say, hey, I need a couple of starters to be on special teams. We won't have them return it. We'll kick it deep every time.
Okay.
And you carry 2 kickers on your team. You carry a guy that can hit it from 45 and in every single time. And then you carry another guy with a big leg for the kickoffs. Or if you want to try a 55-yarder for some reason, because you got to do it with 3 seconds left in the game, you put your guy out there and let him try. But otherwise, you got an automatic guy on the team that can kick it. Because that's the problem. All these guys are trying to kick 60 yards, and you actually change the angle of how you kick when you got to kick a ball 60 yards. You use a different foot angle, and it makes you less accurate. Whereas the old soccer style, you turn your foot more sideways, and you can be more accurate because you're hitting it off a bigger part of your foot.
But you don't have as much power that way, is what you're telling me.
Exactly. So, like, you watched what was that? The Patriot guy that hit a 60-yarder.
Joey Sly.
He's almost like lining up straight and going into it and kind of hitting it more straight on with not as much lean off to the side. So that's what's going on. And so that's why some of these kickers, like, they have a big leg, but they're not very accurate. So everybody's looking for the big leg that's accurate. And it's a really hard combination, And so with the new rules, you can carry 2 kickers. It's not a problem.
So I'm intrigued by the strategy. They need a kicker, and Aaron, that's a good call. Thank you for listening in Middleton. They need a kicker who can make the easy ones. I didn't realize this until this morning. I didn't even think about this until this morning, but Zach Cruz, Packers Wire, tweeted, Braden Narvison is the only kicker to miss a field goal under 40 yards this season. Kickers are 115 for 116 on kicks from under 40 yards in 2024. Narvison missed from 37. In fact, and this is another tweet in the thread, NFL kickers have a higher field goal percentage on kicks over 50 yards this season than Braden Narvison has on all of his kicks. And Narvison hasn't attempted anything over 50 yards, if I remember correctly. It's just so bad. And I'm glad, Aaron, that you brought up the Patriots guy, because Joey Sly is to the Packers he is to the Patriots what Braden Narvison is to the Packers. The Patriots drafted their own guy in the same draft that the Packers drafted Anders Carlson. They gave him the year last year. He wasn't any good, so they cut him to get another guy, and Joey Sly is the guy they settled on, who's been good. He hit a 60-yarder yesterday. The Packers have settled on Braden Narvison, which I guess I didn't really have a strong opinion at the time. It's like, okay, I guess the other guys weren't any good either. But Greg Joseph has been good. And now how much of this falls on the lap of Rich Bisaccia? And now we're back to the whole Rich Bisaccia thing. This is just a rat's nest. This is why I don't really have anything new to say on kicker. If you have things to add, great. Otherwise, I'll talk Jordan Love. I'll talk pass rush, talk Badger football. Hell, I'll talk Brewers. I just don't have anything to add to the kicker discourse. I'm just choosing to ignore it when possible. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Eric on I-90. Hello. And Eric, a personal thank you. You came to Ebo's show on Friday. You came to my show. Thank you for coming to Flipside. It was nice to see you.
On a personal note, thank you for having me. It was so much fun meeting all the callers.
You do enjoy interacting with your fellow callers. You were just going around the bar saying, do you call? You got to call.
Yeah, you got to call. Why aren't you calling?
That is
Call in.
It's pretty accurate. Yeah. Well, congrats on your Vikings win. I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be that petty Packers fan. It's like, congrats on your Super Bowl. Because had we won, we'd be treating it the same way. But congrats to your Vikings. Well played and a fast start.
Yeah, fast start. You know, the biggest reason I'm calling in, Grant, is you were right. You were right on Friday. You were saying that the Minnesota Vikings could not sustain the success on third down on both offense and defense, and it happened. It happened in the second half of that game.
Yeah, a little bit.
Second half, they regressed, but they had a long way to go because they've been doing so good for 4.5 or 3.5 games.
I want to know what that game looks like if the Packers offense and the Packers defense didn't combine to fall behind by 3 scores right away. You know what I mean? Because I feel like once the Packers fell behind a couple scores, the rest of the game, the back and forth was great. Lots of great plays being made by both sides. And I think part of that, Eric, was assisted. You know, when you're up 28, you take your foot off the gas a little. And I think that helped the Packers get rolling. But then the Vikings snapped back to it, and there were some great back and forth possessions. I don't know. I just wish that game would have gone differently because I think it would have been a hell of a game. The Vikings probably still win. They were awesome yesterday, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of a normal game flow because I think it would have been really good.
You know, Grant, I'm a guy who's been listening to you for years, and
you're
kind of getting what you asked for. About 3 years ago, you were like, I would just like somebody who could compete with the Packers. It's so boring. Remember?
Yeah.
You used to have that day.
Yeah.
And now you got it. Now you got it. So that's all right. You know, it's just a game. You guys are probably going to win in Minneapolis.
Maybe.
You know, and I'm not going to say they let off the gas. I'm going to say Kevin O'Connell laid on the stupid pedal in the second half of that game. All right?
How so?
First off, well, okay, I'll pick out one play in particular. And I really believe it was to get Aaron Jones a touchdown. 2nd down and 1 yard to go. Pass the ball to Aaron Rodgers in the end zone, and it gets intercepted.
Aaron Jones?
Right?
Aaron what? Who did they pass to?
Yeah,
Okay.
That the interception right outside the end zone. That was to Aaron Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Green Bay Packers intercepted it.
They tried to. That's the one reason that I'm thrilled with Rashawn Gary today. I know he didn't do anything other than tackle Aaron Jones on that 3rd and 1. I'm so glad that game, it was bad enough to lose to the Vikings, and Aaron Jones touchdown towards the end and then an assumed Lambeau leap. That would have killed me. I'm very glad we didn't get that.
But the thing is, it's 2nd down and 1. You're on the 20 or a 25. You run the ball there. You're able to take 2 minutes off the clock.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to score touchdowns when you're up 28-0. All you have to do is score field goals. That's all you have to do to win. That game at 28-0 was not over in my mind, and I was right.
Well, Eric, you're just not someone who takes your foot off the pedal. You can't. You're on I-90 every day. I appreciate the call. So the interception, the McKinney was the one that you're talking about. So it was 2nd and 1 on the Green Bay 20, and they attempted the deep pass to Aaron Jones. I got the game up in front of me, or the game flew up in front of me now. That was a pass to Jones, and I didn't remember that little tidbit. The funny thing is, That shouldn't have been an interception. They should have overruled that. I'm not really sure why they didn't. I also think that Dontavian Wicks caught both of those balls where he got his hands, he scooped one, another one he had under him. I think Wicks caught both of those balls. Xavier McKinney absolutely did not catch that interception. And yet they let that stand, but they overturned. This is a very weird officiating game. The personal foul or the unsportsmanlike conduct on Matt LaFleur, that was very weird. It's like, you guys, he's obviously trying to call a timeout there. You should have known he was going to call a timeout. You know what I mean? It's like when you wake up 2 minutes before your alarm and then you're scared that you roll over in the morning and you see that it's 5:58. You got a 6 o'clock alarm. All right. I'm kind of getting ready for the day. And then the alarm goes off. You can't believe you can't believe it. They should have been expecting the timeout there. It was looking like they were actively trying to avoid looking at him. It was bizarre. So it's a horrible spot to get a 15-yard penalty. Luckily, it didn't matter because they scored the touchdown anyways. Really nice ball to Jaden Reed. But a really weird situation. I think in the end, the officiating all came out in the wash. I think the Packers on a couple of those reviews maybe got a little unlucky, and then they got very lucky on the Xavier McKinney one. Matt LaFleur got stuck with that penalty, which was weird, but it didn't matter because the Packers ended up scoring a touchdown. I think the officiating mostly came out in the wash. Just a weird game. Some of the choices they made to overturn and to uphold, and it's just bizarre. I thought they got a couple of them wrong, but they got ones wrong that affected both teams. So I guess it doesn't matter. It's just part of the game yesterday that we hadn't mentioned until now. 608-321-1670 Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
I'm sorry, Grant, Dan, DW from the Glarus.
Hey, DW, the mayor. What's going on?
Hey, I want to change subject real quick.
Badgers?
Okay, I see the Mets won. Nope, I see the Mets won the first game, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the Braves come back and win the second game, I think all three, Arizona, the Mets, and the Braves, are all going to be tied at 89 and 73.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens then? Do they have them three teams have a playoff, or do they go on best record against each other?
So this is how it's going to shake out after game 2. If the Mets win the second game, they are in. If the Mets win game 2, the Mets are in, and the Brewers will face the Diamondbacks in the wild card round. And then Atlanta's on the outside looking in. If the Braves win today in game 2, the Brewers will face the Mets in the wild card round. The Braves will get in and the Diamondbacks will not. It's really convoluted and weird. And I have to have this written down because I that is not sticking in my brain at all. You know what I mean?
So we hope the Mets win so that we can face, or the Braves win so we can face the Mets.
Yes, that's what I would like. That's what I would like. And that's not that's not a matter of taste. There is a demonstrable, there is a clear talent difference between the Diamondbacks, who we had on JR Radcliffe said, the Diamondbacks are the highest scoring offense in baseball. The Mets are kind of a ragtag fun story group. There's a big difference between those two teams.
Okay. So what's your take on the Badgers? Are they going to at the end of the year start firing offense and defensive coordinators? Because I just don't see, I don't get it.
The Badgers?
And what they're calling offensively. Yeah.
So this Badgers game is a little bit of a rat's nest. Here's my complaint. Okay. They jumped out to a lead. USC helped them get that lead with some bad special teams play, some interceptions, some mistakes. Okay. So let's treat this game. USC won. They're more talented. They were favored by multiple touchdowns for a reason. What bothers me is not the talent deficit. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I watched that second half and Luke Fickell, Mike Tressel, and Phil Longo were all out coached. And there were examples, DW, like, why is Fickell punting the ball there? You can't be punting the ball. You're not going to get the ball back twice. Why is Mike Tressel on 3rd and long, 3-man rushing, giving Miller Moss all the time in the world? You knew that you needed to make that guy uncomfortable. And they just sat back and especially on 3rd down, they were terrible on 3rd down. And Phil Longo doesn't have a change of pace. As soon as the other team gets a little bit of a beat on what they're trying to do, he's got nothing. I just, that second half, forget the talent disparity between USC and Wisconsin. I think it's wide, but that's not surprising. What was really disheartening is I just don't think that this is a well-coached team, head coach or coordinators.
No, the reason what I saw in the second half just really threw me for a loop because I didn't see, I seen the players, coaches, I mean, they didn't change nothing from first half to the second half. You gotta
you got to change at halftime. You know, your offensive coordinator's got to come up with some new plays. I mean, 4th and 1 and you're running out of the shotgun. Come on, give me a break.
And you can think that way, DW, and don't let the nerds on Twitter tell you can't think that way. Don't let the nerds tell you, well, actually, if you look at the success rate of running out of the shotgun versus under center, it's the same. But I've seen them do it multiple times this year, and it hasn't worked. It keeps not working, and they keep doing it, and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I'm going to the game on this Saturday, and I'm almost tempted to try to sell my tickets. I don't know if I want to go watch that.
Yeah, and I keep going back to DW. That's an awesome call, and I want to continue to talk about the Badgers a little bit. So thanks for giving us an in. I go back to something Ebo told me, and I'll have to ask him about this tomorrow because Ebo can speak to the energy in Madison and the energy around, Regent Street and State Street on game day much better than me because he's been doing tailgates down there and he's been in Madison for years and years longer than me. He said the energy, it's just the interest has not been this lacking ever. He can't remember a time where the interest has been this low and the energy has been this lacking and the season's barely started. Like if they lose to Purdue this weekend, which I haven't looked at that line. I haven't even started to grapple with the Purdue game yet. We'll do that later this week. But, if the Badgers lose one of these games where in years past you could kind of bank a win, people are just going to stop paying attention, especially because Greg Gard is back. Badgers basketball is practicing again. We have that to look forward to. Tradition still matters in that program. Dang it. Dang it. Couple of texts and we'll take a break. Coyote Mike out in Colorado says, Grant, not only was Jordan Love rusty, but so was the rest of the offense. As evidenced by the drop passes and poor route running, having not played with Love for the 2 games prior, Matt LaFleur's game plan was a bit glitchy too. Musgrave has not been much of a factor either. Coyote Mike, glad you had fun at Oktoberfest. Listen to you guys all day. Refs did a makeup call in the Phantom interception, by the way. Yeah, I would just get the calls right, though, and then we don't have to do that. That's what's frustrating. Thank you for listening to our Oktoberfest Palooza last Friday. Dry fly out in Montana. Says watching this Packers defense without Jair is like throwing a size 16 parachute Adams on a sinking line. Something feels off here. Looking forward to seeing both of these teams at full health. It'll be a marquee matchup similar to the Battle of Prairie du Chien in 1814. Well, holy smokes. Battle of Prairie du Chien in 1814. Don't get me started. I'm excited. I'm not going to Prairie du Chien in 2 weekends, but I am having a Coon Valley weekend, the weekend after this one. And driving 14 from Madison to Viroqua. Excellent drive. One of the best. I took 12 from Madison to Baraboo last Thursday. Let me tell you, that drive in the fall with the hills and the colors, that drive is a problem in a good way. Bart says DW can try and sell his tickets, but 50% off face value or less is all he'll get. Well, better than having to go sit through this product right now. Thank you for the text, Bart. All right. You can tweet me at Wisco Grant. Comment on the live stream. Text and call if you'd like. We'll continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
You know, it was tough because I thought early on we had some opportunities. I think it was 3rd and 14, and they hit a high cross for an explosive gain. You know, they caught us. They did a good job. They got a man zone tell, saw we were man coverage, got to the man beater, and they got us there. And then we had an opportunity too. I believe it was on that first drive where Sam gets flushed, and you know, we got to make that play. We make that play, who knows what happens.
It's Matt LaFleur when asked, hey, what went wrong defensively? I think this is such a basic, simple answer. You got to find a way to not be down 21-0. Even if you force a field goal, even if you get lucky with a holding penalty, by hook or by crook, you cannot be down 21-0. Because if that's a playoff game, you're cooked. You're done. And I think the defense started to figure some things out as the game went along. That's great. And that means Jeff Hafley made certain adjustments. Okay, great. You cannot put your offense in that spot. And the offense didn't help out the defense, of course, but different sides of the ball got to pick each other up. I just think, you know, Matt LaFleur in his press conference last night, first of all, seemed very relaxed. Matt LaFleur did not seem like he was losing his mind over that game. He seemed disappointed, but I think he was very, very quick to give credit to O'Connell and to Flores about a couple of instances throughout the game. They had the perfect thing called here. They had this red. They called the perfect thing. And I think there were times where the Packers called the perfect thing too on offense. And then Jordan Love misplaced the throw slightly, or a wide receiver dropped the ball or got beat at the point of attack. And I think that's kind of the story of the two games that Jordan Love has played so far. Against the Vikings, they scored 29 points and had almost 500 yards of offense, and they lost. Against the Eagles, funny enough, they also had 29 points and 414 yards, and they lost. And that's a missed opportunities, right? With lots of penalties, with dropped passes. It's frustrating, but also like after losing your starter for a couple weeks, you're 2-2 now moving forward. I actually think they're an okay spot to heat it up and go on a little bit of a run. They got to do it. I'm not going to sit here and say that they will, but I think they're in a good spot moving forward to take a step and really have an awesome next month or so. We'll see. I'm actually not feeling that down after yesterday's game. I'm frustrated that we were robbed of what should have been a really good game because the Packers defense couldn't get off the field in the first, 25 minutes. 22 minutes, 23 minutes, something like that. 608-321-1670. Continue to take your calls. If you keep calling, you want to talk Packers and Badgers, we'll keep talking. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Southside Scott.
Southside Scott. Hey, Scott, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. Sorry I missed the old party on Friday.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're busy people, Scott. Next year.
You got to work, right?
Amen.
I would ask LaFleur if he thinks we understand why they lost.
You would ask Matt LaFleur if he understands why they lost?
No, if we do, because he didn't think we could understand why they won the last 2 weeks and
I
what
see what you're saying.
Malik Willis was doing.
Did you have an issue with that?
Well, I mean, it just makes it a little bit because, we understand football, like not as good as him, but we still understand football.
I think that, okay, so you interpreted that as fans are dumb, fans don't know. I interpreted that as you guys think that this is impressive. Trust me, you don't even know because you don't see what goes on behind the scenes. I didn't think he was taking a shot at fans. I think that was more in praise of his own guy. But I get where you're coming from.
And then I'm not going to, you know, me being a Denver fan, I'm not celebrating our win last night or yesterday.
It's funny.
Well, I just like that we tamed Aaron Rodgers and didn't give him a chance to do anything.
You beat the hell out of Aaron Rodgers. You just tame him. They beat up Aaron Rodgers. The Broncos did yesterday. He's getting hit.
Yeah, it was
running for his life.
It was a big defensive stand, but our offense just wasn't there. So,
well, there is that. Southside Scott, I appreciate it. I just got to get to another couple callers. I said this on the morning show with Ebo. I'm not cheering against Aaron Rodgers every week. I'm kind of watching with an open mind. There might be some games where I'm really pulling for him, and there might be some games where I kind of want to see the Jets struggle a little bit because I think it's interesting. I think it's funny, and it's good content when the Jets lose, right? Talking about whether or not Robert Saleh can coach. What is Nathaniel Hackett doing there? Woody Johnson is a bad owner. Like, I just think it's entertaining. It's better for content if the Jets lose, I think. Now, it's not bad for content if they win. It's just a different type of content. You know what I mean? I think it's funny when the Eagles lose because they get dumped on. I'm excited for my drive home tonight. I'm going to find some clips from shows today to hear what folks had to say about the Eagles. They got their skulls bashed in by the Buccaneers in Tampa this weekend. I wasn't pulling against the Jets yesterday, but I appreciate the content of the Jets losing at home, Aaron Rodgers losing at home, in which the opponent scores 10 points and the opposing quarterback in his fourth career start throws for 60 yards. That's funny. That's funny. If Rodgers and the Jets can't win that game, I'm going to laugh at him. That's funny. I wasn't sitting on my couch actively cheering for the Broncos, but my goodness, if the Jets are going to lose that game, then I get to have a laugh. We all get to have a laugh. That's funny. That's good, clean fun. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
Q, I see you tweeting up a storm about the Bucks.
Yeah. Before we get there, I've been very critical of Matt LaFleur, and I think he's playing the long game. I think he is getting this team ready to peak in December and January, like last year. So I'm not concerned at all. And that second half yesterday is a credit to him and the coaching staff to get that team to not quit because we were down 28-0. I
don't disagree with you. I think it is a testament to I think it's a testament to them. I'm just really hesitant to puff my chest out too much about that today. Like, I don't want to be the Wisconsin sports radio host where it's like, they were good. But man, I was so proud to see how they continued to fight. Like, it is good that they fought. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to take moral victory laps on this show because they didn't throw in the towel at halftime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not taking a victory lap. It's
I got you.
Yeah, but both
no, you're giving credit to a coach that you've been critical of, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah. So I got 4 takeaways from Media Day today, if you've got time.
Sure.
So Dame is locked in, happy, and proud. He sounds like a completely different person, and I'm so excited to see what happens to him this season.
He seems excited.
DeLon Wright, he only got asked 2 questions, but in those 2 questions, he sounded like a heady hooper. He talked about being able to defend Boston in the playoffs 1 through 4. I'm thinking we've got Drew Holiday light on our hands here. I'm really excited to see what he can do off the bench. The biggest takeaway that I had today was John Horst and Doc Rivers seem very connected. I had no idea how collaborative their relationship has been throughout the offseason. They just seem very excited to be working together. And this leads me to my final point. Doc compared the 24 Bucks to the 08 Celtics, specifically referencing the youth on the 08 Celtics that led them to that championship, like Rondo. I think my hunch is that the Bucks made a big investment in player development this year, and Doc has bought in and will break the mold and play the youth on this team, which is what we were all clamoring for last year. I'm not saying it's going to lead us to success, but I'm very optimistic on this team.
Quickly, why do you think he's going to play young guys? What have you seen? Is that just a gut feeling, or have you seen some bit of evidence or heard some commentary that makes you think he's going to play young guys? Because I don't buy into that for a minute.
So I think that he directly impacted the draft choices we made this year, and then he expanded his coaching staff more than usual to include player development people. And then I think him referencing to that today is kind of it's foreshadowing where he's thinking the season would go. He wouldn't say that unless he thought somebody on this team like an AJ Green could contribute as much as Rondo did in that championship run.
Okay, so I'm going to have to sit on that a little bit, and we're going to talk more about Bucks Media Day. Maybe tomorrow on Bill's show. This is a weird week, and I got a tweet from Cohen, and I appreciate it. He was bummed that we're bumping callers with Packers and Badgers points to talk Brewers with JR. This is just a loaded week. I don't really know how to approach this week with only a 2-hour show. Tonight is mostly Packers and Badgers. It's the way that it should be. But the Brewers are about to play a playoff series. The Bucks just had their media day. The Badgers are, I wouldn't say they're in crisis, but they have every alumni and former player kind of blasting them on Twitter. There's a lot going on this week, okay? So I'm doing my best. I think we've kept the main thing, mostly the main thing tonight with football, Badgers, Packers. But we've mixed in some other things. I think you might be seeing and hearing what you want to see and hear. If Doc Rivers starts playing young guys, I would be floored this year, because coaches, like older quarterbacks, typically do things the way they like to do things, and that typically doesn't change a whole lot. I could be wrong. And you were more plugged into Bucks Media Day. I was just looking at Twitter. I'm assuming you watched some pressers and you really consumed it in detail. I did not. One more call, then we'll take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Tommy and Madison.
Hey, Tommy. What's going on?
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Actually, for how bad the Packer game did yesterday, moving forward, I'm just kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to see what they do against the Rams. And then they have the Cardinals. And then the Texans at home. Like, I think this team is really well positioned over the next month to really take a step up and kind of move into the next phase of the season. I think they're ready to play some good football.
So it's funny. I actually feel the same way whenever I hear you and Bill talk in the afternoon. I'm like, damn, that's exactly what I was kind of thinking along those lines.
Bill was more positive than I thought he was going to be today, because I normally am the one in that duo from 10 to 2 who makes excuses and tries to be a little bit more of a fan. Bill today actually wasn't too bent out of shape about much. And that, I don't know, I was happy, because I think we're kind of on the same wavelength, and it sounds like you are too, Tommy.
Yeah, definitely along those lines. Quick question on that, then I want to jump to a couple other topics very quickly.
Yeah.
You find yourself being more critical of the offense or the defense on pro football regularly?
The Packers or just the league in general?
Probably Packers.
Probably the offense, because I think they're more talented, and I think Matt LaFleur's a good coach.
Oh, geez. I don't know what it is. I just hold all this accountability for the defense and Packers offense. I'm like, oh, they're young. They're going to drop the ball. He's going to miss those throws, whatever else.
Yeah.
Last question on the pen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I get where you're coming from. I just think too much blame has been placed on the defense for games that the offense could have won the last couple of years. And in the playoffs under Rodgers, like, well, the defense did this. It's like, but the offense has chances to win too. You know, Tommy, like, the offense can go out and win a game. We don't always have to leave it up to the defense to slam the door at the end.
Quick thing on the Packers before I jump around. Is Wicks the hero or the villain yesterday? He dropped so many balls and then just exploded in the second half.
Man, I don't know. You should have caught that touchdown. Hit him right hit him right in the chest.
I was so mad at that dude in the first half. I was so mad.
Yeah, and
caught all these balls and got all these touchdowns and brought him back in it. So I don't know what to think of.
He should have, if he on that first drive, if he catches that ball coming over the middle, Tommy, I appreciate it. I feel like he gets close to scoring. Like, this is what's frustrating. This is the same stuff that happened against the Eagles. This team could be 4-0 right now without a ton of crazy change. Like, if a couple plays were executed just a little bit more cleanly, if the Packers could operate at just a slightly higher level on offense, like, you could be 4-0 right now. I put more accountability on the offense because I think the offense is their better unit. It's not to say that I think the defense is great and without flaw. I think it's a flawed unit. It has been. But I think the offense is the driving force behind this team. It's where I think most of their talent is. I think Matt LaFleur is the best coordinator or play caller of the offense, defense, and the special teams. I have a higher standard for the offense. And a lot of times in games that the Packers have lost, let's just say since the beginning of the Jordan Love era, there's only like 1 or 2 games where the defense completely bottomed out and didn't give the offense a chance to win. They easily could have beat the Vikings yesterday, even with the defense playing the way that they did. They easily could have beat the Eagles in week 1, even with the defense playing as they did. The Niners game was uber winnable. The Packers offense couldn't slam the door in the second half when they had opportunities. They lost that game to the Bucks. The defense, that's probably the one game since the beginning of the Jordan Love era that I look at and say the defense didn't give the offense an honest to goodness chance to win. The Bucks game, where they just could not stop Baker Mayfield. Other than that, every single game has been there to be won by the offense. Now, I'm happy that they moved on from Joe Barry because I didn't really like the brand of football. I thought they could aim and strive for something better, and I'm glad that they are. But and if you go back and listen to last year's shows, and why would you? Don't do that. Don't waste your time. I don't think I was coming in a whole lot when they were 3-6. How did they start the year? I wasn't coming in saying this defense needs to be better. This defense is screwing them over. The offense wasn't doing enough. I didn't like the type of defense that they ran, and I was never really floored by the hiring of Joe Barry or the type of defense that he ran. But there was only a game or two last year with Jordan Love where the defense didn't do its part and didn't set the offense up and give the offense a chance to win. All right, we're woefully late for a break. If you're on hold, stay there. I can get to you after the break, but I got to get this in. Wisco Sports Show. Back in a couple minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Fire Phil Longo, fire Mike Tressel. And if you could, fire Luke Fickell. But you can't. But that's the emotion of this right now.
Are those your comments or the comments in your
the
mentions?
the comments in my mentions, the comments
Okay,
on the stream. That was not me saying that. That'd be hilarious.
No, but that's the sentiment.
And I'm sure someone will clip it and make sure that it gets out there that was me. Fire Phil Longo, fire Mike Tressel. And if you could, fire Luke Fickell.
What? Zach Heilprin wants everybody canned? Wow, did you hear that? Our sports director, WOZN, just wants the whole staff out on their ass. Man, normally Zach's much more measured than that. Jeez. Emotional much, Zach? That's from his Badger post-game stream on the camp with Ben on Saturday. I love that Ben's doing post-games with Zach. I miss Ben as a human, but also tremendous content creator for Badger football. Happy to have him in the space doing some shows with Zach. And we love Jesse Temple, but I like, mix in some different voices. I love Ben. I just can't. Zach, are you serious right now? Everybody, Zach? This is the kind of thing he'd yell at me for.
Fire Phil Longo, fire Mike Tressel. And
wow.
If you could, fire Luke Fickell.
Man, only one season and 4 games in. He wants the guy fired.
Fire Luke Fickell.
You heard it. He said it. We continue to talk Badgers, Packers, whatever else is on your mind. We even got a Bucks Media Day content. This is a tough week. Tough in a good way. There's just so much going on. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how we doing?
Ridge Runner Mark, I'm excellent. Good evening.
Good evening. So I kind of listened to what you were talking about into the break about the Packers, and we don't expect the defense to be world breakers, but they did give them a chance. They held the Vikings to 3 points in the second half. And could they have stopped them on that last drive that only gave us about 4 minutes to go? Maybe. But they also were missing 2 cornerbacks. Their anchor cornerback that probably could have very well led to a change in how they ran their defense. And maybe that's what created some of the holes. Lots of little things that caused that game. You can't point to one actual thing that lost us that game. There's death by 1,000 cuts in a way. And that's kind of what I take away, which makes me not worried that we still almost were down by only 2 points. And the fact that we had that many mistakes and still almost won, I'm feeling pretty good about the future. I'm not overly concerned yet.
I'm feeling optimistic. I will not go over the bridge that many have gone over. And I did Pack a Day with Andy last night, and Andy was like, they'll get it going. They'll be fine. I don't know that they'll get it going. I don't know that they'll be fine. I know that through 4 games, considering 2 of them were started by Malik Willis, who wasn't on the team before the end of the month of August, I'll take 2-2. And I'll take what I saw in the second half from Jordan Love and these receivers, and I'm excited to see what they can do over the next month. But they need to step it up. Cut the penalties out, catch the football, execute at a higher level on 3rd down and in the red zone. Like, I think this offense has a jumping off point right now. What they do with that jumping off point and how they perform over the next couple weeks of the schedule, that remains to be seen. I'm optimistic, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure that, they're about to catch fire. I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence to indicate that they will. I've just seen an offense that's really shown flashes and really shown potential, but hasn't really been able to put it all together yet this year.
Right. It's mental mistakes. It's the details that are getting missed, and maybe they were kind of feeling themselves a little too much because everybody was talking to them about going to the Super Bowl because of their playoff run. So a little bit of they're just mentally not where they need to be. And the defense, it was a big change. It's not like they replaced one player and that player they're plugging into a system that's been there. No, you've got a brand new defensive coordinator who
who's never done NFL before, he's learning on the fly. Yes, he had the entire, training camp and all that. He's still learning, and I'm hopeful and optimistic that by the end of the year, he's going to hit his stride. He's going to be able to call plays.
Sure.
He's going to be able to dice up an offense. He's going to be able to react mid-game and make changes based on things he sees, and he's just going to grow with it. We need to allow him to do that. Very much so like what's his nuts with the Badgers. It's what, a 2, 3-year, 4-year process for any college coach to really get his people and get his system going.
Yeah.
Everyone just needs to calm down.
So I think so too. I have to be a little careful, Ridge Runner Mark. I appreciate that. That's a good call. I have to be a little careful with some of the excuses or explanations that we afford to Jeff Hafley. And it's the same with Jordan Love, right? Because we just went through a long period of time with Aaron Rodgers where we nitpicked this and we complained about that and we complained about, and I don't want to treat the next guy with kid gloves. I want to make sure that we remain somewhat standardized in what we expect from our athletes and from our coaches, right? I don't just want to be kinder and make more excuses for Jordan Love than I would have for Rodgers because Jordan Love, didn't get all dramatic and obnoxious and cause a big stink the last couple of years, right? And that's an oversimplification of why it became difficult with Rodgers down the stretch. We don't need to get into it, right? But we criticized every little thing that Rodgers did, and I think some of that was fair. Some of it was maybe a little bit strong. So now I don't want to treat Jordan Love with kid gloves. It's the same with Jeff Hafley versus Joe Barry. We nitpicked everything. I think Joe Barry took flack last year for things that, maybe were slightly his fault, but really, and now I don't want to turn around and be like, we got to give Jeff Hafley time. Yeah, you get some time. But man, giving up 400 yards to the Vikings and the Eagles were snuffed out by the Saints. They were snuffed out by the Buccaneers yesterday. So I just want to make sure that we are treating parties with standardized standards, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense. I just want to make sure we're taking the same approach to these different actors. We hated Joe Barry and everything that he did. And I'm not saying we need to hate Jeff Hafley. I just want to be accurate in the way that we talk about and the way that we cover some of these figures. That's it. Now, with the Badgers, I don't know. I won't go so far as to say that we should fire Fickle like Zach.
Fire Luke Fickle.
Again, those are his words. He also wants to fire Mike Tressel.
Fired Mike Tressel.
And maybe he wants to fire Phil Longo
Fire
too.
Phil Longo.
Jesus, Zach. You want to fire the AD too? This is my tax dollars we're talking about, Zach. It's a little ridiculous. Again, those are his words, not mine.
Fire Luke Fickle.
I was so disappointed with the coaching on Saturday. I just don't think Mike Tressel has shown to be a high-level defensive coordinator yet. If it takes him some time, okay, it takes him some time. I think the strength of Fickle and I think the strength of any head coach and coaching staff and program that's installed at Wisconsin should be high school recruiting. This can't be a Deion Sanders outfit, okay? And their high school recruiting classes have been good. We got to wait for them. All right, that's fine. It's not like they've been head and shoulders better than some of the classes that Paul Christ had. Paul Christ had good classes too, right? It's not like Paul Christ classes were here and Luke Fickle's classes are here. No, they're actually pretty comparable. But I'll afford him that time. I just wish I was more impressed in the interim. I just wish while we waited for Luke Fickle's guys, while we waited for their recruits to come of age, I wish I would be more impressed with the decision-making and the adjustments and just all of it. The punt kick decisions, the approach to third down. I just wish I had more confidence in the coaches and how they were handling the talent that they actually had now while we're waiting for the supposed great recruiting talent that's coming in. That's it. Do I think they should be fired? No, I think it's a little much.
Fire Luke Fickle.
But Zach is a bold analyst.
Fire Mike Tressel.
Jesus, Zach. Everybody?
Fire Phil Longo.
Okay, fire them all. Sure, why not? Fire Luke Fickle if you can. Why not? All of it. All right, we're going to take a break. Wisco Sports Show. We'll come back, wrap up any final texts, any final tweets, anything we haven't gotten to yet. I'll take care of next as we wrap up the show.
Fire Phil Longo. Fired Mike Tressel. And if you could, fire Luke Fickle.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, last couple of minutes. Shoot me a text. Get it into the last minute here. 608-321-1670. Good callers on the Badgers, the Packers. This Badger game compels me. The USC game is an interesting topic. It's worth talking about. There's lots of little nooks and crannies in that game, offense, defense, that we can explore. Big picture things. We didn't even get into some of the tweets that we saw from Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, and I'll paraphrase, and I won't do him dirty with what he said, but paraphrasing basically said, one day you'll catch me on a podcast talking about what really happened Paul Chris final year. It's like, okay, part of me resents podcasting because it's created this environment where everyone feels like they have something to say. I understand the irony of me saying that into this microphone on the show that I host and gets posted as a podcast. Yes, I understand the irony. I just, one day I'll get on a podcast and tell you the real story. Devontae Adams did that not that long ago too. He's like, oh, one day you'll get the real story. Okay, just jump on a podcast and say, well, the Packers offered me this. I didn't want this, so I left. Okay, great. I'm glad we could save that for a podcast. I'm glad that the podcasting world got that scoop. I loved the thread from Jack Sitchie. Actually, Jack Sitchie is one of my favorite Badgers, man. That dude was awesome. He tweeted this about NIL, not really related to Luke Fickell, but just while he was complaining about college football, and I love this. It says, NIL is a joke. NCAA conference and school raking money hand over fist. Instead of profit sharing, make our fans donate their money to kids so they can buy new Jordan 1s. That's basically what it is. That's why, Varsity Ale, if that's your thing and you want to spend your money to support your favorite athletic teams and programs, I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not doing that. Maybe if Liney's comes out with a beer, okay, beer I actually like, sure, maybe. Then a nice secondary, then a nice side benefit to me drinking beer that I like is the money goes to the recruits. I'm not paying so these kids can get custom shoes. I'm not paying, for example, in the SEC, the kids got Lamborghinis waiting for them. That's the last thing those Georgia athletes need is a sports car they can crash. I don't know. What happened to the value in a scholarship? I understand some of these kids' NIL opportunities. Okay, legit NIL opportunities, not, hey, here's a check if you come play here. What happened to the value of a scholarship at a prestigious university? I'll stop yelling at a cloud. Podcast will go up in just a couple minutes. Appreciate you listening. No show tomorrow. We'll do a live Brewers show, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So be tapped in as soon as the Brewer game ends tomorrow.